Cool. Okay, my name is Madison Warwa. As they mentioned, I'm just wrapping up my master's degree in mechanical engineering. Part of my work is also working in the ICE incubator. If you are not too familiar with the ICE incubator, it's on the other side of ETLC. I'll talk a little bit about that more as we go through this, but my presentation today is going to talk about product development and developing ideas into products. So that might not necessarily be a physical product always, but it is something that you are creating to create value for some customer. Okay, first a little bit about the ICE incubator. ICE stands for Innovation, Creativity, and Entrepreneurship. And our work looks to support innovators at the University of Alberta through different programming to provide mentorship, tools, and other supports for any of your entrepreneurship activities. So University of Alberta community applies to undergrads, graduate students, staff, and recent alumni. So if you have not heard of us or checked us out before, I invite you to stop by or check out the website, send us an email. Okay, and with that, a little bit into product development. This can be described as the process of transforming a market opportunity and customer requirements into a viable product. There are many different types of ways you can approach this, different things like agile or a waterfall method, but in general, they all kind of follow this same process, beginning at an idea, going through the design phases, and up to launching your product. There's also the challenge of balancing different constraints within this process, and these are often cost, related to your costs in your development process, your costs in maybe manufacturing or designing, and then cost in, oh yeah, that's probably better. It was kind of echoey. Okay, I'm just gonna keep going. Another one of your constraints is time. This is often time to market, so the time that it takes you from your idea to releasing your product into the market, and then quality, which can be related to different aspects like performance or reliability. Quality means many different things. But so with that, I'm going to go through the first two phases a little bit more in detail for idea generation and concept development, as those are kind of your starting early phases where a lot of your defining work comes in for your ideas. Starting with idea generation, the biggest issue is you're having a problem to solve. With that problem comes with a customer and someone who would pay for that. If you don't have a customer or someone who would pay for it, oftentimes you just have a hobby, which is what I've been told quite a bit, and I think that's kind of just a funny aspect of it. So there's lots of different ways you can come up with your idea. I'm sure you've heard of them. We won't really talk about them too much, but we'll go with that into what is a product. So a product is something that provides value to a customer for some cost. So with those kind of same questions again, for your product to provide value, do you have a problem worth solving? With that, with your customer, does the customer want that problem to be solved? Is there a need for that? And as well with cost, what would they pay to have that problem solved? So there's some different components of these. I'll go through, talk a bit about value. Value can be functionality, value can be quality, safety. Your different customers will have different ideas of what value means to them. And so that's part of one of the things you think about when you're developing your product is you have to understand what value means to your target customer. With that also are costs. Costs can be for you and your development, so your costs of design, your costs of manufacturing, as well as your costs in things of marketing your product. For your customer, these include their initial cost to purchase the product, their way that they have to spend different time and money to integrate that into their everyday lives, as well as maintenance or upkeep of the product that they've purchased. Go into the next phase a little bit, concept development. This is where you really further develop your idea and look at things like the feasibility technically. So that can be in your design, your feasibility in the market. Is there a market for your product and will someone look to buy it? and then as well as financial feasibility. Can your product make money? I'll talk about the first two, technical and market, in a bit more detail. So for your technical feasibility, this comes down to what is the minimum maturity of your product that you can release to kind of test if your product is something that can be successful. So this is defined usually as a minimum viable product, or MVP. This is your kind of baseline version of a product that contains just the necessary functions. So your version of the product without any of the bells and whistles that you might look to add on later to just kind of determine if this is something that can succeed. So why would you look at doing an MVP? This is something you can do to establish your minimum amount of resources to test if your product can be successful without wasting any of those later resources to make sure that this is actually something that won't fail in the market. Yeah, so with that, there's a figure here you might have seen before. I think it's a much more software development type of MVP figure. So this looks at what is and isn't MVP. So an MVP isn't something that is in steps to get to your final product. An MVP is something that is usable at every stage. So a skateboard is an MVP of something that is going to transport you between A to B, whereas a wheels or frame is not going to get you from A to B. As well, with an MVP, it's important to look at trying to establish your baseline for your product early on, because as you continue in your development process, those changes to make things is going to increase, the amount it will cost to make those changes is going to increase. So looking at doing that earlier on in your design stage is valuable to avoid those potential failures later on in your process. That also brings us to the next part of feasibility, which is in your market. What you want to do for your market feasibility is look at testing and confirming that there is actually demand for your product before you look at investing significant time or resources into developing it further and bringing it to your market. I guess I kind of covered the why there, but also if you've looked at a lean canvas before, or if that is something familiar to you, this kind of also goes into developing that further. If that's not familiar, just forget what I said. But okay, with that as well, your product is going to be based on some different assumptions about who the market is, or what the market is, who your customers are, and what your product needs to accomplish that. What you're going to do in this stage is going to involve testing those assumptions to reduce the uncertainty involved in your process. So these assumptions can be based on desirability. Do customers want to buy this product? As well as feasibility. Is this a solution that can actually be created? For usability, can someone use it? Is it intuitive? For viability, is it profitable? Can this actually be made at a rate that will make money? One way to conduct this market feasibility is through doing market research. So this is the process of gathering information about a market and the customers to determine if this is a viable product. So this comes down to trying to understand your customers as well as the other competitors in the market for your product. There are two different ways to do this, being primary and secondary research. Your primary research is going to be something that you conduct firsthand. There's often a lot of additional costs associated with this because to create surveys or to hire people to create surveys or conduct focus groups and interviews is going to have a much higher cost associated with it. But the information you have is going to be a lot more tailored to your specific company or product needs. For secondary research, this leverages existing information out there that is widely published online, so different industry reports or government data. This is a lot cheaper of a type of market research, but again, it's not going to necessarily be customized to exactly what you need. So there's a balance between combining both of these to get your full look at the market. Okay, so part of your market validation, I have some samples of types of questions that you're going to be looking at answering during this. So what problem is being solved? Who's the target customer? Those same ones again, as well as would this customer pay for it? How much would they pay? And then some other things too that are important to highlight is with the problem, how are customers currently solving it? How does the problem occur and how often does it happen? This is something that I don't know it off the top of my head exactly, but I think there's some kind of metric some people have talked about if it at some frequency of a problem occurring is going to show you that this is something worth solving. So you're not going to look at solving a problem that occurs for someone once a year. You want something that's going to have some higher frequency to look at it actually being a way for you to make money with your venture. As well, how will you differentiate yourself to make customers switch from your other competitors to yourself? That's also very important to look at this stage to really have your unique value for your company. Okay, that was kind of a lot at once, but just to summarize, we looked at the product development process, we looked at idea generation and what constitutes a product, as well as for our concept development, what kind of tests for feasibility can we do? Yeah, and with that, thank you for listening to me. If you have questions or if you're interested in learning a bit more about the ICE incubator, I encourage you to stop by or reach out with our email. Yeah, thank you very much.